It's all over. 21 races completed. 2018 is over. It's still not sunk in just yet. It really hasn't. And the fact that we've got no more Alonso anymore, no more Kimi in a Ferrari, no more Ricciardo in a Red Bull, that still hasn't quite hit home. And I think it will take probably until we start seeing the launches of the new cars next year that it starts to hit home that we won't see any of these big guys in these teams, in these cars, or in the case of Fernando Alonso and Marcus Ericsson, Sergei Sorokin might not be back in Formula 1 ever again. So a lot of change going into next year of Formula 1. But for one last time in the 2018 season, I'm going to be reviewing the race. And today I'll be reviewing round 21, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Now, very different weekend for me. Usually, I watch the race with my dad. I have watched Formula 1 with my dad every single weekend since 2007. This was the first one I can think of in a very long time. Maybe I wasn't old enough at some points to stay up for some of them, like Canada, for example. But for the first one in a very long time, I didn't watch with him. And the main reason was that I was invited by the F1 Word, Sean, to do a watch-along live with him. And we did that together. That was a lot of fun. So I imagine some of you guys will already know my thoughts on the entire Grand Prix. And if you are interested, I don't know if how many of you would be, but if you are interested in going and watching that whole race back through, or going to the moments of particular interest, like, I suppose, the Grosjean crash for the early doors, Grosjean scraps halfway through, strategy with Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen, even my reactions to Alonso, the end of the race. If you want to see that all in, I suppose, its natural environment and raw reactions, then links will be in the top right hand corner, in the iCards, and in the description below. But if you are new around here, welcome. As always, I always say this, you've just caught me at the end of the Formula 1 season, but around here we don't just do Formula 1, we also do Formula E. So we got all that goodness on the way in the coming weeks. But Formula 1 won't be going anywhere. If you missed my video I put out yesterday, I sort of covered what I'm going to be doing over the winter. I will be doing a separate video again describing what I'm going to be doing over the winter, just to make it clear. Formula 1 content won't be going anywhere, so don't worry about that whatsoever. But Formula E, obviously, with the new season starting up very shortly, in less than a month now, that obviously will be the focus for a little bit of time. So I do encourage you to check that out, but you're not here for that right now. You're here to listen to my thoughts on the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. As always, if you've got your thoughts and disagree with me, or agree with me, chuck them down in the comments below. But last round of the season, all year long, I've done different ways of doing my race reviews. Today, I'm not really going to go through the story of the race, mainly because it's taken a day to come out. As I always say, Monday's a very busy day for me, and I did the watch along last night, so I had sort of different priorities yesterday, so I wasn't able to get out the review last night. And today, always busy on a Monday, so it's coming out a little bit later than planned. But let's crack on with it then. So we're going to go through the race order and I'll have a little chat about each driver along the way. Then I will do my driver of the day and my score out of 10 for the final time this year. Pictures should be coming on the screen right now, or you've seen a few already. Winner, race winner, once again for the 11th time this season, Lewis Hamilton gets the record amount of points scored in a season and finishes over 80 points in front of Sebastian Vettel in the championship. Sebastian Vettel came home in P2. Now, I want to talk about both these guys because, obviously, the two big title rivals this season, Hamilton in the end has walked it, really. After an incredible end to the season, we've seen this countless times from Lewis Hamilton, him just turn up the gears after that summer break, and he's done it once again this year. He is a true legend, and I'm not a fanboy, but I've got a lot of respect for Lewis Hamilton. I really do, and this year, for me, it's been his best year. You know, and I'm not just saying that in the heat of the moment. I think it really has been Lewis Hamilton's best year. 408 points is just key evidence to this. 11 out of 21 race wins. He has been incredible. And you look at his teammate Valtteri Bottas's points, barely even reaching that 200-point mark. It's a huge contrast. Yeah, he did hit 200 points, but I'm saying take away a couple of races this year, and he's only just done it. So, obviously, different fortunes. We'll be doing a season review at the end of the year, but this weekend, Hamilton on form once again. Sebastian Vettel third on the grid. A quiet afternoon, got in a bit of a scrap with Valtteri Bottas. Bottas, who ended the race in 5th, he seemed to have some brake issues, and while during the race watch along with Sean, I did say that the fact that Hamilton came in early, maybe that was Mercedes trying to put Bottas on the optimal strategy, and I think that was. I think if he hadn't had these issues, although I know some people will say they weren't issues, I think it's hard to argue that. You know, he is a class racing driver at the end of the day, and locking up like he did so many times in such a short space of time, yeah, there must have been some sort of issue there. Whether that was the cooling of the tyres because of that little bit of rain that was coming through the sort of halfway point of the race, who knows? But Hamilton dominant. Vettel, like I say, apart from that little scrap with Bottas, had a pretty quiet race weekend. Max Verstappen started P6, was down to about P10 after lap 1. A really difficult start from Max. Seemed to not quite get the drive off the line. His initial getaway was pretty good, but then the car just didn't quite have that little bit of oomph, that little punch of energy to keep him going. Went miles down the grid, ended up having to work his way back through the field, did a brilliant job. Ended up P3, and the only real reason he was P3 and not his teammate Daniel Ricciardo was because Ricciardo went on this crazy sort of alternate strategy going long into the race. The team almost hoping maybe for a safety car, hoping for that rain, but it never quite came. He had good pace at the end, Ricciardo, and it looked for a minute like he might be able to claw back a podium, but as we have seen so many times this year, and I hope we don't see it next year, as soon as those cars get in that 2-second window, it's very difficult to overtake. So fingers crossed next year with the new regulations, they'll be able to sort that out lovely. Bottas, we had a little chat about him, 2nd to 5th. He'll be disappointed with that and really looking to reset his batteries over the winter. But I am one of those people that has a bit of confidence in Valtteri Bottas. Really good start to the year. I think at the halfway point of the year, he was one of my top drivers of the season. How wrong I have been ever since is very apparent. So he'll definitely be an interesting one to look into over the winter. Right, P6 then, someone who's got under the radar all year long pretty much. Really struggled to think of some standout performances from Mr. Carlos Sainz Jr. But this weekend, I think it's fair to say, from 11th on the grid to 6th, comfortably one of his best races of the year. And with this sort of shock result, he's almost fluked a shock result in the championship as well. He's gone up to 10th. That means he's overtaken Esteban Ocon and Fernando Alonso. Don't really know where that has come from, but Carlos Sainz once again is the top Spaniard in Formula 1, and that'll give him a sort of, I suppose, a bittersweet moment leaving Renault. Great result to end on, but he will be leaving the team. So I think he'll do good things next year at McLaren. Him and Norris together, I think that's a solid partnership. Lots of rebuilding to go on there, and I suppose McLaren, not a lot to talk, I suppose, in the season review I'll do for them, but maybe for the predictions next year, I think maybe a rebuilding year. And I think Sainz and Norris is a nice little partnership there, so that'll definitely be one to look out for. Right, candidate for driver of the day, one of the 3 I will be picking, or putting forward for driver of the day, is Charles Leclerc. Only finished P7, and the reason I say only was at one point he was very much on for a 4th, maybe even a podium, getting past Daniel Ricciardo, Kimi Raikkonen, right up there in the top 3, or the top 4 even. And I suppose if Valtteri Bottas would have had his brake issues a bit later on, Leclerc could have been there. The only issue was he and Grosjean and Hamilton went for this alternate strategy, going on the super softs early, and it did not work out for Leclerc or Romain Grosjean. Both of them were in great positions, but that strategy just did not work for either of them. But Charles Leclerc, some great fighting with some cars, he should be nowhere near. He had an awesome little dice with Daniel Ricciardo and was able to keep up with the Ferraris, the Mercedes, and stay ahead of Daniel Ricciardo. So a really mature drive for Charles Leclerc, who in theory is still in his rookie year. So really excited to see him in Ferrari next year. I know I keep raving about him, I really do, but this man is the real deal. So watch out for him next year. P8 from P14 on the grid. Sergio Perez, a bit of a quiet race, to be honest with you. He was one of the drivers that decided to go a little bit longer into the race and ended up, because of that strategy decision, ended up in front of Romain Grosjean, who was running really well in P6 for the majority of the race until he made his stop. He ended up in P9. My man, well, I suppose his big talking point isn't the major scrap he had with Ocon and Van Dorn, which was amazing to see. It wasn't the fact that he defied the FIA and the race control and did donuts at the end of the race. Wasn't that. It was the big smash he had with Nico Hülkenberg. Now, unlike Jonty's Corner, if you don't know who Jonty's Corner is, he is a member of the stream team on the F1 Word. Big presence on Twitter, so as always, go check him out. Great guy, great lad, but his opinions on this crash are so wrong. What an embarrassment. What an embarrassment. I'm obviously going to have some slight bias, and again, if you want to see my raw reaction for this crash, that will be in this stream. You can go see that at any point. But like I say, I can't really put blame on anyone, really, would be my opinion. Race and incident all day long, for sure. Arguably, Grosjean could have just cut the corner, completely just not gone for any sort of, I suppose, contact whatsoever, just gone completely clean. And I think a lot of drivers on the grid would have done that. We know Romain Grosjean doesn't mind a smash here or there, so he went for it. He fighting for as many points as he can get today in this incredible run of form he's on, and yet a big smash once again. So, you know, at first glance I thought, oh my god, he's done it again. But the way Hülkenberg pushes him off the track and then just almost pretends that he's not there, not for me, I'm afraid. If you're going to put blame on anyone, I think it's got to go Hülkenberg's way. But racing incident all day long for me. Racing incident all day long. I thought maybe, Shortman brought this up on stream, that because of the severity of the accident, that could be a penalty. And I thought that was a really good point. The FIA and race stewards always seem to, I don't want to say do things like that as such, but they do really. So that's nice to see that, even though that was one of the biggest smashes of the year, not the biggest smash, I think that would go to Fernando Alonso and Hülkenberg again in Spa, but it was a big one. So, look, we'll move on from it. Grosjean on a big run of form in the second half of the year, so hopefully, well, for me anyway, he can take that into next season. Magnussen from 13th on the grid to 10th, nowhere this weekend once again, but was able to snatch a point after a pretty good strategy from his side of the garage from the Haas team, so they'll be happy to leave the year in 5th place in the Constructors. Alonso in his final ever race, an emotional one. And a real emotional one. The legend that is Fernando. I'll be doing lots of videos over him for the foreseeable future. What a guy. He will be missed. That really did hit me this weekend, especially at the end with almost the tribute from Hamilton and Vettel, escorting him around the circuit, doing the donuts with him. That was pretty special. I won't forget that for a very, very long time. Surprisingly, behind him was Brendan Hartley. A quiet day, went onto the super softs during the safety car period, ran all the way to the end, ended up with a P12. I'm sure he's very happy with that one indeed. Behind them, I suppose I should really say contender for driver of the day, considering where he started, what car he's in, where he finished. Lance Stroll, 20th on the grid, dead last, was able to put in those race performances that we've seen of, I hate to say it for you Stroll haters, but a very impressive run this year of race performances. Qualifying, he still needs a bit of work on, but race pace is very, very impressive. His race pace and qualifying pace are more similar than most drivers, but that does benefit him in the race. So that's something that I think next year, when he does make his move to Force India, which is pretty much confirmed now, then I think there'll be a few surprises from Lance Stroll. Stoffel Van Dorn, someone who really drove his heart out today, and Do I put him in my top 3? I might have to, you know. Really impressed with Stoffel Van Dorn once again today. Team didn't get his strategy right. You know, that's fair to say. Started in 18th, finished 14th. Sorokin was the final finisher in 15th. So these guys, you started way back and finished higher up. Even Lance Stroll, to be fair. Mainly because most people retired. But Van Dorn drove his heart out, fighting a solid scrap with Ocon, solid scrap with Grosjean. Really great drive today from Stoffel Van Dorn, and the past 3 Grand Prix, he's upped his level once again, so it's a shame he's leaving now, but this is the momentum he needs to start Formula E, and with the Mercedes-backed team, I think he'll do very well in Formula E. So I will miss Stoffel in F1, but it's always nice to see drivers I'm a fan of heading over to Formula E, so I've got no complaints there whatsoever. And Sergei Sorokin, the man who should have got driver of the day in terms of the meme vote, didn't get it, and it was Fernando Alonso who won the official driver of the day. Gasly out with engine issues, Esteban Ocon out with similar troubles, Marcus Ericsson in his final race almost ever in Formula 1 out for Sauber on lap 24. Ocon as well, just I'll quickly mention, that could be his last race for at least a year. Gasly his last for Toro Rosso before he moves to Red Bull. Lap 6, Kimi Raikkonen on his final race for Ferrari. That one hurt me a lot, I can't deny. That one hurt me a lot. The man I supported for those 2 years at Lotus, it was a die-hard Kimi Raikkonen fan. Yeah, that wasn't nice to see, but he's still back with Sauber for another 2 years, so there's still chance for that redemption at the end of his career. And Hülkenberg with that big smash with Grosjean out on the very first lap. So then, my drivers of the day, my top 3, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, and Stoffel Van Dorn. They're the 3 I'm going to go for. I think most of you know I have this real sort of love for the midfield fight, and whoever's on top of that always has a special place, but today I'm going to have to go with Charles Leclerc. I really am. The fact that he was able to keep up with those front guys, almost looked like he belonged there in a Sauber. I mean, yeah, he's going to be something special next year and deserves driver of the day. In my opinion, Fernando Alonso won the official one. Had a great race, I'm not going to deny. Getting up to 11th place in that McLaren is a solid job. Even though it's emotional, I'm not going to give him driver of the day, unfortunately. But, on a more positive note, that was one of the best Abu Dhabi Grand Prix I think we've ever seen. And out of 10, I'm going to give it... Oh, I'm not going to go as high as an 8, I'm going to go as a 7. And at the end of the year, when I look at all the results I've given these Grand Prix, there's going to have to be a bit of reshuffling because I really enjoyed this one. A lot of emotion going into it. I would push it up to an 8, but I'm pretty sure I gave the likes of China and Bahrain, I think I gave those an 8 or a 9, so can't give it that high of a ranking, but I really enjoyed this race, and the fact that I was over on the F1 World with Sean doing the watch along was a lot of fun. And it's the end of 2018. It is, as always. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments section below. Who's driver of the day? What would you rate the race out of 10? And something a little bit different, the season. How do you rate the season out of 10? If I'm being honest, it's pretty high. I'm not going to lie. You will find out my official in quotation marks, you'll find out my sort of official sort of ranking out of 10 for the whole season and for each race in my sort of season review, if you will. But just quickly off the top of my head, I think it's got to be an 8 or 9 out of 10. 9's pushing it. 9's pushing it, to be fair. But I think 8's solid. It's not a 7. It's not a 9. So 8 is a perfect number, I think. And probably, yeah, that probably is my official one. I think 8 out of 10 this year. Really enjoyed it. Just missed out on that final championship battle. And the fact that I can't really remember many races that were boring. We didn't really have a real big wet race. I don't think we had a full wet race once this year. So yeah, I've loved Formula 1 this year. And just a quick note, I know it's been a long one today, this race review, and I know it's late, so I don't imagine many of you guys will be here. But if you are, that's good to know, and thank you as always. But on a serious note, this has been a fantastic year of Formula 1 for me. My first doing YouTube. We've gone through a few teething. There's no denying that, but we've made it to the end of the season. And winter, this year, of my channel, I think it's going to be even bigger. So thank you for sticking with me as always. And as always, again, I'll see you in the next one.